Rockwell podcast. This is a very special edition. Our first artist is on the show. We've been meaning to have an artist because we call this the Rockwell podcast, but it was originally like the Renaissance podcast. And we want to interview different people from different types of artistic fields and different ways of expression. We have a wonderful guest. We have Dan Park in the building. Let's make some noise. Woo!
What's up, guys?
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Hey, what you're on the East Coast. What city are you in?
I'm in Jersey right now.
Nice.
So I came up to New York for school from Texas. Born and raised in Texas first, and then after school in New York at SVA, then I moved over to Jersey. Yeah.
What's SVA? That's an art school?
It's the School of Visual Arts. Yeah,
Okay.
I came up from, and then just worked out here, started teaching kids art, and that's what I'm doing ever since.
That's cool. And like, let's just get into it. Like, what was the journey becoming an artist? Especially because like we have a lot of Asian Americans. I'm Asian American. I'm Indian, and it's like a field that like our parents don't really, encourage. But you're actually making it work. So no matter what, you're making it work. And you're just doing your art and you're teaching and you're still putting out your own art. How was the journey like? Going to like, did you start off in art school at like elementary, or how did it go?
Yeah, so like as far as I can remember, I was just like, I would my mom would take me to the library, and just drop me off at the library. So all I would do is look at art books, stuff about animals, and dinosaurs and space and stuff. So I would just be drawing since I was like a little kid. And I actually in elementary school, my earliest memories with art was I just made my friends laugh by like drawing my teachers naked and stuff, and I'd sell those things for like 50 cents. So ever since then, I was an illustrator. So yeah, that's how I started out. And then I just kept on doing it, and here I am.
So like the school that you went like out of high school, did you go to? You said that school in Tech, or that school was in New York, right?
Yeah.
Is that like an undergrad, or that's just like just
undergrad. Just for illustration. Yeah, but to be honest, I think that nowadays you don't even need to go to school for illustration, because like as long as you just keep at it, you just keep drawing, start having a vision for yourself. I think that anybody can make it, especially nowadays, with like Instagram, you can just post your stuff.
That's true. But then like in school, is it like the technical aspect that you think needs to be learned about, like with the new technology and things like that? Like
I think learning, honestly, like you could do on your own. It's just being in an environment with like other people who want to do the same thing. I think that's the most important thing. So pretty much you pay for an environment where like you can be surrounded by artistic people, so like that are encouraged to do schoolwork all the time. I think that's kind of what helps people get motivated to find out their own craft, to develop themselves. But if somebody wanted to, they could just look at online tutorials and stuff. Technique, especially nowadays, it doesn't really matter. You just need to find your voice. I guess same with anything. Same with rap, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't really go to school for hip hop.
Exactly. That's what I always tell people. But people like to go to recording school, and that's the same thing that that you just told us. It's like for the environment and like-minded people. I never went to recording school or anything like that. Maybe I wish sometimes it may help. Sometimes it may not. Like same with acting school. We always ask like the actors and casting directors if the actors like join acting school. I guess it is what you just like to do and stuff like that. But I want to ask, like, and your wife, is she into art as well? Because you guys.
Yeah, she's actually a designer, a graphic designer. So yeah, she ended up going to the same school at SVA, and then she worked at some big time places, like Pentagram Designs, New York Times, RGA, things like that. So yeah, she's a big shot. So we're partnered up to build this art studio called Art Lab Studio in Fort Lee, New Jersey. And so we just started like a few months ago, and then this thing hit. So we're stuck, but it's okay. We'll get back up. We've been doing online classes for students.
I was just gonna ask that, like, I was gonna ask if you're doing the online classes, and do you think like, because dude, I drive by all these art studios and it says like, it looks like it's for kids, but it says like all age. And I'm like, dude, I want to I wish I could take an art class, but it's just embarrassing. I don't want to sit down in like a little kid's chair and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
guys teach just kids or like adults too? Just curious.
So we have separate classes for that. So like some kids that are interested in developing their portfolios, either to get into like art schools or like regular schools that they need some supplements, you know. So kids that are interested in art but not necessarily want to go into art schools, they can make like a portfolio. So we have a special class for that. And then we got privates, you know, and that could be anybody. Or we could have like a special adults class. It doesn't matter. The main vision for this place was we wanted to like a place for collaboration, not just like, you know, let's get you into art school or something like that. So yeah, anybody's welcome. Like you can take some art classes if you want to.
Yeah, I know. I should sign up for that. Like honestly, like bro, dude, I said in the first episode of this podcast when I was talking to my other friend, and I said
Oh
the
yeah.
one thing I want to do, like people like make during the quarantine, they say like, oh, you make time for the things you've been meaning to do, and I was like, dude, I want to always paint. I
Oh
just
yeah.
suck at it. I'm terrible at it, and I
Mm-hmm.
think just because I'm terrible,
You
like,
wanted to paint?
yeah, I want to paint.
Paint
Like I
like
want to learn.
oh yeah.
I'm not good at it.
Nice. That's cool, dude. Yeah, I feel like my job, more than just like teaching art, is actually, you know, all that stuff that I learned from teachers, like them saying, you know, believe in yourself, you can do anything. I would be that kid that would be like raising my hand, be like, oh yeah, so I can fly. I just believe in it. But like now I get what they're saying. They're saying if they start seeing that a little bit more and more each
Okay.
day, then you could be that. So like, yeah, man, whoever it is, that's like my main message.
Like with art, was it like kind of like do or die? You're gonna do it no matter what because it's something you love, whether you struggle with it or, you know, like no matter what, it was something you're gonna just make your life based around art.
Well, honestly, I was just obsessed with like movies and stuff. So I'm every time I think about art, I don't think of it as like a painting or like, you know, just one static piece of art. I think about like motion, I think about storytelling, you know, and all that. So I actually wanted to go into like film and movies, you know, stuff like that. But one thing I don't like, because maybe you know, I'm a control freak or something. I don't want to leave it in the hands of all these other people, you know. So
Yeah.
like, you know, I don't want to fund the thing. I don't want to buy all this equipment. I don't want to gather, you know, leave it in the hands of like, oh, I made a bad casting call. I got to stick with this person. Like, there's just so many logistical things. But, you know, with art, I could just draw the thing. If I don't like it, I could change it, you know, create different scenes. So I think it might be kind of like a power hungry type of thing where I don't want to give give that vision away to like piecemeal it out to this person and another person.
And that's, you're right, you know, and like it's maybe some people may look at it as power hungry, but that's what artists are kind of trained to do. It's just expressing your own art, you know, without anybody manipulating it or anybody's like, you know, tainting your own personal creativity, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah, but I
mhm.
yeah, after working with a lot of you know, in the illustration field with the commercial work, I learned that, you know, obviously there's a lot that I can learn from collaboration and other people's opinions. So, you know, I'm always keeping my eyes open for like bettering myself. But in terms of film, it was just way too much for me. So that's kind of how I got into it. I would love movies, you know, and I would always just watch a lot of movies. So yeah, drawing my own stuff was the solution to that.
Like how would you categorize your art? Because you know how like they do like Picasso,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
The
like
all the isms.
yeah, the isms,
Yo,
yeah.
man. Yeah, I got so many like theories and you know, because I've been another one of my main interests is philosophy. So like I would say that I'm almost closer to like an artist philosopher than an artist, just a straight up artist. So I got all these philosophies that I try to teach my students about like all these isms. So in terms of my work, I can't necessarily put it into an ism. And to be honest with you, I think that it's hard for me to actually have a style. Like I ever since I was little, I always like, you know, I was like, if they're like superheroes, I'm kind of like the guy that like steals people's like, you know, like morphs into other people's powers. So if I see somebody doing well at impressionism, I just start thinking like, what is impressionism? Like, how can I incorporate that into my thing? And I think to be honest, I think that I suffered a little bit because of that, you know, commercially, because if you you know, even if you draw poorly, that could be your thing, you know, like just like being really bad at it, or you use like the old school paint or something, you know,
Like
like limiting yourself
Mr.
could be
Brainwash,
bad.
right? Didn't they say something like that about him? That you know that
About who?
Brainwash, or I forgot what his name is, but they did that documentary on Banksy, and
Oh
then
yeah.
And yeah, I guess that was his thing. Like you said, being bad at something. But yeah, continue what you were saying. That was kind of interesting what you were saying. Like with I just don't like if you can explain further why you think that affected you in a negative way, absorbing so much.
So so like as we're all growing up, you know, we see things that we like, and if you become too much, I think that if you become too much of like an intake type of person, you're a collector. Collected this style, collected that style, which I kind of am. I want to understand everything because my mind is all geared towards like philosophy and understanding things. Like cubism isn't about, you know, making everything into cubes. For example, it's about like, you know, like Picasso and George Braque, where these guys that are thinking, okay, so like if art is all about myself and my perspective on something, and that I see that chair over there, then what if I move over here? Then that chair and the whole background moves, but the chair is still the same. So what does it mean to paint the chair realistically? So you paint the whole thing moving. And that's what cubism is about. You're putting all space and time together. I know
I never
that's
thought
pretty.
about it like that.
Yeah. So I'm trying to understand these kinds of concepts, and once I understand all of that, you know, it doesn't necessarily like make me pinpoint into one style. Like the moment I start doing something realistic, that's the moment I want to put some like cartoony things in there or some action art in there, you know. The
Yeah.
moment like somebody like likes my digital stuff, this was my problem in the past. The moment somebody likes my digital stuff, I'd be like, you know what, I gotta do some traditional painting here, some oil painting. So I have that kind of like rebellious attitude, like that's not all I am, don't fit me into a box. Like I'm not just that celebrity anatomy guy, I'm not just this kind of thing. But I think it did hurt me a little bit in terms of my career in the past.
Maybe in your mind right now, but yeah, what you just said like clicked. At first, I didn't know what you meant by that, but you're just
Mm-hmm.
contrarian and you just want to go against the grain, and you don't. When people expect something
Yeah,
from you, I think your artist instinct is to go the opposite way, like Kanye.
exactly.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
yeah, and I think that's
Like
a
I can't make a gospel album.
good.
You know what I mean? Everyone's making fun of like gospel albums, and he just did a legit gospel album like that.
Yeah. And like that's how I
Exactly.
feel with I think the same thing with music and people I think people struggle with that too, like if you like either you're just got to stick in your own lane to be successful and just not try other things. For some artists they don't want to try other things because that's what people expect from them, but there's the people who are innovative and really break through are willing to try different things and not even in acting not do the same role over and over again, music not do like rap over the same trap beat, maybe do a you know like just go different styles. So that's super interesting. Like I see a lot
Yeah.
of your art is based like on boxing and martial arts. Is that like a big
Oh
inspiration?
yeah. Yeah,
Like, do you think like
yeah,
the
definitely. Because and you know when it,
Mhm.
yeah, I think when I can't think of something like I have these lofty ideas, something I like to consider as like my base, like the primal self. So once again, about the philosophy is like, you know, I train Muay Thai, I train a little bit of that, and I go to a great gym called North Jersey Muay Thai, and where we're like it's like legit, like it's changed my life a lot. Like, you know, it got me a lot fitter, and I've just been obsessed with fighting, you know, and just combat sports since I was little. I would go to Blockbuster, yeah, and I would go to Blockbuster and watch since I think UFC one. I would just watch all of them. So I've
Nice.
always been obsessed with fighting, but yeah, I go back to that. It's like my go-to, you know, starting with like Ninja Turtles. It's just all about combat. And I think that going back to the primal aspect instead of just always going up into more and more like lofty philosophical meaning, I think at the end it's like it's good to remember that, you know, art is entertainment, and nobody cares about what I tell my students is nobody cares about your art, nobody cares about what it means until you make them want to know. Like they have to want to care about it. Like they don't initially think like, oh, you spend so much time on it, tell me what that's about. No, you gotta like trick them into caring. So I think that that's when I try to go down to the baseline, you know, to the primal source, which is like, you know, survival, fighting, things like that.
And when you say trick them into caring, is it kind of like putting things out based like your artwork based on things that are like common that people have in common and like it's for
Yeah.
celebrity pictures like people know those people and so when they see like I loved your Mac Miller painting or like the drawing of
Oh
Mac
yeah. Thanks,
Miller,
dude.
dude. and it's like that draws me in to look at all your other artwork. Is that kind of what you're saying to your students, like something like that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think you have to as an artist, you know, like somebody could say, you know, I like art, I like music that's all about the meaning, that's all about the words. And I say, bullshit. Like, then you'd read a poem. Music isn't about the meaning at first, you know, it's about the way it sounds. Classical music, you don't know what that composer was exactly thinking in terms of like a literal meaning. It just sounds good or it doesn't. So that's been my philosophy. But yeah, like that Mac Miller piece, sometimes I'm just a fan, and you know, like seriously, I wanted to capture that feeling of when I heard that last album, that posthumous album.
Mhm.
You know, I was literally like working like in the dark late at night, and I was like, oh shit, this thing dropped. And then I put it on, and I'm by myself with my headphones, and it was like he was live again. So I wanted to capture like that feeling of like, you know, like the flip side. If you look at that drawing, that one just flashed in my mind, so I thought I had to do it. And you know, the whole circle, swimming in circles concept. So you see his face reflected, but there's, if you notice, there's two figures, and one's like from the bottom, you're looking bottom up in the water, and then the other one is like him just chilling on top. So it's like,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
kind of, you know, yeah, kind of past the divide, the great divide. He's kind of still reaching out. That's kind of the
Dude, I didn't even notice all that stuff. Like I
thing.
noticed it in my subconscious, but then you explaining it is like super ill.
Thanks,
Damn.
dude.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
sometimes it's just like whatever I'm inspired by, because I want to keep on going with the moment. You know, I want to live in the now. So like I could be talking all this stuff about whatever, but like who knows when I might just draw a bunch of flowers like next week. So I want to be going with the flow of the now while still maintaining, you know, my quality level
I see
and
what you're
try to up myself. Yeah.
and we're gonna get back to the art, but I want to go back to what you're talking about with your philosophy and like you. It seems like a theme is like eternal survival, kind of, and that
Yeah, yeah.
whole thing. So like, could you delve a little deeper and explain that to people and how that really affects your art and explain that concept?
Totally. So I think early on in my life, like I've always, I was that kid in high school who was cool with everybody, and I would just like move from table to table during lunchtime, and I would just ask people, you know, hey, what do you think the meaning of life is? I know that, you know, I'd be like, I know it's weird, you know, I just introduced me. I was cool with everybody. So, you know, I noticed that like in that table, there would be people that actually wanted to engage with me, and you know, obviously it's awkward, and I gotta talk to the friends about, hey, what is the meaning of life? You know, like, but like if somebody is like the designated weirdo, then it's kind of opens it up for other people to discuss. So I, early on in high school, I decided, you know, I could tell that these, like in every table there'd be like a couple people that wanted to talk about it. And ever since then I decided, okay, I'm the guy that like says it. I'm the guy that asks those questions. So even when I moved up to New York, I would talk to like homeless people, cops, like, you know, rabbis. I would talk to everybody, Muslims. I would talk to everyone about what they thought the meaning of life was. And over all that time, and from my religious background, like I came up with some conclusions that I think works for me logically. And so yeah, like philosophically, I just got some main points that I think it's very, very simple. I think that if there is a meaning, like meaning itself, the thing that separates us from all the other creatures, uh, is our ability to have this type of abstract storytelling where I could just look at this screen, I could talk to you, I never really talked to you before, but we can make these sounds to each other, and we're like painting stories in each other's minds by our shared reference points of words, right? These concepts. And those concepts are like pointing, these words are pointing at like a tree. There's a tree. The word tree is not about one specific green thing that we see. It's like all the trees that ever existed, all those similar plants that ever existed, boiled down into one word. And so with that, we paint these pictures to each other. So I know that's a long-winded story,
I
but
love it.
meaning,
I love this. Keep going.
yeah, I've been waiting for somebody to ask me. But so meaning, if there is one, is purely human knowledge. That's why a lot of people say it. That's just human philosophy. And I always ask them, what else is there? We're human, so we can only use human logic, human words. So if there is meaning, it has to be an overarching story about why what we really want to know is, why is the self valuable? Why is it significant? That's what our real question. What is the meaning of life means? How, in what scenario, in what type of story is an individual significant? And I think that there's an answer to that. And that's kind of like my ultimate goal in my art. So, through all this fighting art, through whatever things that I do, ultimately I want to show this thing that I call the meaning of I, which explains, the point is, it's kind of like a story, a narrative that follows one individual who's making these discoveries one by one. And his first discovery is like realizing his body is alive and that it's going to die. So like confronting death and what is the meaning of I, basically.
That's
So
super
yeah,
dope.
that informs everything for me.
Do you know who Richard how do I say it? Richard Linklater is?
No, actually
I
no.
should look him up because you remind me so much of him. Like he makes these movies, and I don't know if he draws the art in the movies. I know he directs them, but
Uh-huh.
they're very philosophical because they're a lot of them are cartoons. And
Uh-huh.
look them up when you get the chance. Richard Link,
Richard Link. What is
yes,
it? Link?
So
Link something?
Linklater, Linklater. He has like a
Oh, okay.
called
Link
like
later.
something. Yeah, you
Cool, man. Thanks. I will check him out for sure.
no worries. And it's just, you remind me of him because I never put these two things together, like how you put it together, like how much philosophy affects like artists and painters. And let me ask you this, just to get back to the like the nitty gritty of it, like the technique and stuff. So these
Yeah.
pictures on your Instagram and things like that, are these drawings freehand, or like how do you do this? And like I know it's not easy to explain how you do it, but like
Yeah.
digital,
Well,
bit of both, or
yeah, I think that the main struggle for any artist, I think whatever art form it is, whether it's music or visual art, I think the main goal is like you gotta see it first. Like that's the goal. Like you get a moment of inspiration, like you're going through life and then something hits you, like, oh shoot, I gotta document this. I gotta so we're moving through space and time and we have an experience, we're like, oh shit, like I gotta capture this somehow. I think that's the impulse of art. That's like the point of it. So but then the moment we want to capture it, it's gone. Because that moment's gone. So ever since that moment, it's all memory. We're just trying to go back to it. Like, what was that? What was that feeling? And when it's done well, we translate that. We share it so that they could stand in our place at that moment in time and be like, oh, that apple is pretty. Even if it's just like a pretty apple. So the way that I do my art, and I have to admit, sometimes I fail. Most of the times I fail at capturing the exact moment of inspiration. But I think that that's the goal. So like, you get a moment, and then you're like, what was that? How do I capture that? And whether it's a song, like you hear a melody, like, or you have a line. So what was it? What do I gotta say? And it's almost like you hear it before it happens, and then the rest of the work is about trying to be true to it, getting out of your own way. So I think that that's the whole difficulty of art. Like we have all these ideas of what we think it ought to be like, or like, man, no, I got to do this, and that's when we get very heady. But I think, so with my artwork, oh yeah, sorry,
no,
you got
you
me on a roll. In terms of technique, so I have an image in my mind, and then I try to capture it by sketching, and I start with just like a line drawing sketch, freehand, just looking at that, and then sometimes I need references, sometimes I don't. But yeah, that's the goal. I'm just trying to get into the mindset of like, as I'm sketching, as I'm making each line, it's like a struggle of like insecurity and like confidence. It's like, is that right? No, and sometimes you're in it, sometimes you're not.
like when you were mentioning that, like it reminds you of like Kendrick Lamar in music. He says he doesn't, like, he gets the inspiration off the first 17 seconds he hears a beat, and then he goes into, he knows whether he's
Oh
going to
yeah,
finish that beat or not,
yeah,
and
yeah.
like how you're putting out like a picture a day on Instagram, and it seems like you're making a new one to put out.
Almost.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's your goal though, right? Do you
yeah.
think like, inspiration, it has to come to you, or do you think there's a way to like invoke and create inspiration in your art, like by doing it every
I,
day?
I think just like with everything, there's levels to it. So sometimes like that inspiration is gonna be like amazing, like something like that Mac Miller one. I actually got that imagery as soon as I started hearing that album. But like sometimes you just have to work at it because like I forgot who the artist was, but there's some dude. It wasn't Lucian Freud. He'd just be naked when he painted. There's some artists who would like literally dress up to go to paint every day, like as if he's going working a 9 to 5. So I think that there's that aspect of like being free and being open, but then there is that aspect of just plain work, like just working at it, sketching. If you don't have inspiration, just find one, like start that process somehow. You know, I just think that you can't just sit by and wait for inspiration. You have to keep your eyes open, and if you don't see it, just fake it till you make it in that moment, and then hopefully you'll find something.
I'm glad you said that because I think there's a misconception with a lot of artists and especially a lot of young artists, especially with so much stimuli that we're constantly being subjected to. Like people just think they need to be inspired to sit down and work. But it was actually, I read this self-help book by an artist, actually, like a painter, and it said like quantity is actually more important than quality because quantity will lead to quality. By you sitting down doing the work every day, then it leads to like better and better quality, right?
Definitely, yeah, I totally agree with that. Because like, if you make like 1,000 paintings, there's got to be at least one that's like a masterpiece, you know. But a lot of people might just sulk around and say, I don't know what I'm supposed to paint. Then for sure, you're not gonna paint anything.
100%. I want to switch gears too, just because I've been thinking about this. Because a lot of us artists, and I consider us all in the same field of art, it's just being creative
Definitely,
and expressing, you know. And
yeah.
a lot of us, we have trouble finding people romantically, relationship wise, who are in the same field or not even in the same field, but think the same way. And you were talking about how, like, when you sit down at the lunch table, you like to ask those deep questions. And I have the same situations in my life. Like, there's a group of friends that I know I can't talk deep stuff with. They just want to talk about the game or something or
Oh yeah.
business. Yeah. And there's other people that few amount of people I can have these kind of conversations with. Like, is your wife the same as you, where you guys can have these conversations, these philosophical conversations?
So that's interesting because actually, the way that I met my wife was with this type of conversation. You know, we were both like super. We met each other when we were 19, so it's been a long time. But yeah, we met each other, and the first conversation was about like the meaning of life, like what's all this stuff for, and so we connected that way. But as we get older and as we, after being with each other for so long, it's not necessarily just like a conscious, literal, like, hey, I can't keep on asking the same question. What do you think the meaning of life is? But I think what's important is to be able to segue in and out of whatever topic it is. Like I'm really stupid. Like I might talk about all this philosophy stuff, but I'm pretty simple and I'm pretty stupid about a lot of things. And she's, she's much more like, I would say, feeling based, and my problem is I get in my own way because I'm so heady and I like analyze the hell out of everything. So I think that that's when I look to her, like even with my artwork, and I say like, "What do you think?" And I want that immediate response, like if it's good or if it's bad, because I know if I get her, then I can get everybody. But if
Mm,
I have to, if I explain it to her, because she's much more simplistic with it. So in terms of like, philosophy, and I'm talking about like the deepest of concepts, it's not like that every day with me and my wife.
mhm.
But in terms of art, we connect. In terms of our main morals and a constant seeking, that's where we connect. So yeah, I think that there's like a time and place where I could be able to talk to some friends about certain things, and I don't think that we need to have all the qualities into one person to be there. And honestly, if she was like so similar to me, I think we just wouldn't talk at all. Like, like
True.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I just feel I'd like smell all that bullshit. Like I was just using big words now, huh?
Yeah.
Just trying to skim over things. So yeah, I think it's good. Like there's that aspect of opposites attracting. We're
I
opposite
believe
in that
that
way.
too, because then you don't want to just sit down and talk to yourself, but you also do want to have like opposites attract to a certain point, but the fact that you and your wife at least share common interests, especially with art, especially with
Definitely.
philosophy, like, or at least you guys think deeper. I think that's a cool thing. Let me ask you this, just like, because I watch. I've never been a good artist, bro. Like, I can't even roll joints. I always tell people, dude, like, it's because I'm just really terrible at arts and crafts, and so I'm enamored with it. Things that I can't do, like, I'm enamored with. Like, I'm in awe
Me
of
too.
like athletes and artists. Like, actors are cool, but I feel like I can do it if I want, and like things like that. Like, I feel like I could
You
do.
killed that. You killed that low key stuff for
Appreciate that.
real.
And you did the
Yeah, I
artwork.
was.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for that again, man. That was super ill. Like, you did. My dad was on that too. Like, he loved that
Oh
artwork.
yeah.
You created like a dope thing for our whole ensemble to just keep forever. So we appreciate that. But let me ask you this: like I watched this movie like Basquiat, like, and I have another painter friend who's like he'll do the podcast eventually. But you artists are kind of like shy, and you guys have your own
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah.
Do you think like that kind of era is kind of like, Basquiat and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, do you
Yeah.
think it's like, how do you, instead of you doing drugs, or maybe you do drugs, I don't know, but like instead of you, how do you tap into that creative force, and do you understand why these artists during the late 80s or mid 80s were using drugs so heavily? Like, do you like
Yeah.
get that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that like I said before, like the job of an artist is to document, is to like since time and space is fleeting, like life itself is fleeting, like this moment is gone by. So the impulse of art is to capture it, to make an artifact, right? To like leave something behind so that ultimately somebody else can validate our experience and say, "Oh shoot, that was a cool experience."
Wait,
So
hold
in order,
on. I
yeah,
gotta highlight what you just said. You said art. Was that like a metaphor or a pun, or you just like, because I took it as
I
like,
do both. Yeah, I
okay,
do
that's
both. It's
hard.
the
Artifact.
artifact. Yeah,
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 that's hard. Okay. All
yeah.
right.
I said it once before. I didn't just think about it.
That was ill, though.
I
It
can,
took me a second to
yeah,
catch that. Yeah. All right.
yeah. So art. The point of art is to leave artifacts for others, and in that regard, I think that artists are explorers of the self. Like, I philosophy again. Like science looks outward and makes stories with like words and symbols. Like E equals MC squared is like pointing at like this plus this equals this in the world. Artists go inwards. We're like spelunking into the cave of the self, and we're like, what is it to be me? Like, what is it like? Because nobody else could be me. So like that's something that science could never do. Science could tell you like the steps, like the causal relationships of why coffee might spark some taste in your brain, but it can't tell you what it tastes like. And that's the job of the artist. It can't tell you what it's like from the inside. And so I think that that's why a lot of artists go to drugs. I mean, people are messed up anyways, and we want to explore. I think that's just a natural aspect of human beings to want to explore, but especially for artists to want to see the limits of sensations. Like, oh, we're just a bunch of like senses, right? Um, and we want to see what that's all about and kind of tweak the senses a little bit and see what the limits of our experience is. So I think that it makes sense for artists to experiment with drugs, but I do think that it's possible to get lost in it and forget about the documenting side. So you can have the experience side, but then get so lost in the experience side. It's almost like somebody just watching stuff, like flipping through Instagram just for the inspiration. But when are you gonna write your story, man? When are you gonna make that song? Like when are you gonna make that artwork? You could just like say I'm researching, you know, but that could last forever, and you might never document it. So I think that those are some pitfalls, and of course you could die.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that affects our new generation, the young kids, especially because like when we were growing up, or at least when I was growing up, I mean, I still grew up in the internet era. I always think of people like Eminem, like how he writes in his notebook. Like, I write on my phone, and I think that is such a huge distraction because I can
Oh yeah,
easily go to Instagram. And like you just said, that hit home with me because it's so easy to get distracted. And when are you going to document yourself? You can be inspired all day. You could act like that's your
yeah,
job, but like at a certain point, you're just being lazy. You're just sitting there. So that's a great
yeah,
thing. And not to stay too much on this dark subject, but your job as an artist is to think, is to be creative. You don't, your whole job, like, and especially you teach art, so your every day is to be creative. Do you ever find that pushing you to dark places in your mind? And if you do, how do you if you want to touch a little bit upon your faith, it's up to you. How does that help you? Because artists out there, like that's kind of what leads them to drugs, because their job is to think, and
Yeah.
when you get alone with your thoughts, it could drive you to dark places. So how do you combat that?
Honestly, that's I actually forget life before Muay Thai, but that's where Muay Thai helps a lot, because I do have a lot of darkness, and I don't know if people at the gym could testify, but like it gets pretty dark when I'm hitting that bag, you know, when I'm hitting the pads. And so I something I noticed is like on the way to the gym, when I'm driving to the gym, I get stressed out about all these thoughts about, whatever the news and stuff. But then after like expending all my energy and letting all those demons out, like murderous murderous demons, as I'm hitting the bag, like I listen to the same news, and I just don't give a shit, It's
Mm.
like it's time to work. I feel good, and a lot of that is just physical, but I think spiritually too. Like there's an aspect of like, I think that a lot of religious people, honestly, I'm turned off by. I grew up in the church, and I ended up getting turned off a lot by it because of the false dichotomy of like the body and the spirit, in terms of like vilifying one or the other. But I totally I came to a point where I totally think if there is meaning, it's got to be a moral meaning. Like every story that matters, it's not just about like this guy got this stuff, got a lot of stuff, and he died. Like that's a horrible story. Like every good story is like somebody made a bunch of bad decisions and then regretted it, and then finally like decided to change his life. And that moral story seems to be the only one that matters. So I'm still all about that. And that's why the whole renewal of like, asking for forgiveness, that stuff is like, I think that is the height of evolution. So we might become some kind of hive mind, where we all know each other's thoughts and evolve that way with AI or whatever. But I don't think we could ever reach beyond personal meaning, where like an ape is on their knees begging for forgiveness for all the sins that they commit. I don't think that you can reach any higher in terms of personal meaning. So I think that for me, that's always in the back of my mind, and that's kind of what I logically argue for. If there is a meaning, if or nothing matters, I think it's either one or the other.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like it is one or the other. And the people who have never struggled, I've gone through a lot of problems. A lot of my problems were like self-inflicted. A lot of them were due to circumstances. But either way, I'm sure you have too. We all go through our struggles, and I'm grateful for them. Eventually, during the time, you're not really grateful for it.
Yeah.
Like you brought up something, and it's like, and we'll get it. It's a good segue actually, because I watch and Joe Rogan. He has this video on YouTube where he talks about like waking up in the morning and being a piece of shit, and putting that ice cream in the blender or whatever he was talking about, and just like people love a comeback story. People love. I don't want to ruin the whole. Everybody
Yeah.
Video, yeah, because it's inspirational. Like people like it when you fuck up and then you build it up back again. Nobody really likes somebody who just is on top and just stays on top, and people love a comeback story. So I want to ask you just, how did you, like, we saw that Joe Rogan's, like, you're on his radar, like you do artwork for him. That's pretty big,
Oh yeah.
Like, how did that happen? Did you do like
Oh yeah, wearing this shirt.
Oh, that's his shirt. I didn't even notice that. That's
Yeah. I drew this and I made a bunch of shirts. Yeah, but I don't have any now, so I would plug it. But I don't have any left.
That's so dope though.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think it was after that drawing, and he reposted it a couple times, and then like I reach out to him sometimes through DMs. Sometimes he answers, sometimes he doesn't. But yeah, that's how it is. Yeah, man, his podcast is really, it was really eye opening. I've been following almost since the beginning. It's been a long time. Speaking of, did you hear about that new Spotify deal?
Yes, I did hear about that. It's amazing. Yeah. 100 million. And he held out for a long time. So he's doing something right,
Yeah, a couple years for the Rockwell
Yeah,
podcast,
exactly.
right?
That's
A couple more years, and you get into 100 million territory.
Exactly. Let me get to 10,000 first, and then we'll see. Let me pay.
Okay. Yeah.
No, but you're right.
Yeah.
'Cause I've been thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like,
yeah, that dude's inspirational, man.
and that must give validation to your art. I always look at artists and like, you know, when rappers use the artwork, like, do you put any
Right.
credits? Like, does that, you know, it must make you feel like validated and like, damn, it's my artwork is reaching these certain people who are just telling me it's dope. Does it give you a,
Yeah,
mhm.
definitely. I think that we make art so that other people can see it. You know, it's a lie if people say I just do art for myself, then don't show anybody. You know, that's
Yeah.
what I tell people. We make art for other people, and ultimately, because I do have more than just art, I have this message that I want to reach people with, to try to be their best selves, and that there is meaning. Of course, anybody can say life is meaningless, but I'm that guy that's saying life is. What if it is? What if it is? So like that's my ultimate message to people. So I do want to reach as many people as I can, and something like that, those reposts and that kind of stuff is validating. But at the moment, I feel good about anything. It's just the way my psychology is. I only think about like, what am I going to do next? Like that's all I care about, and that's why I'm still in this daily mindset. I still want to balance out like the primal, like I still want people to like my work, but I want to explore things as well, at a steady pace. So, yeah, man, it's validating, but it's nothing at the same time. Like I
The
just,
mentality you have, that's the mentality of a winner for all you people out there who just get a victory and you just sit on your ass. Like, that's not how you win. That mentality is how you stay a winner, because people do get really comfortable with a little bit of compliments and they think, oh, okay, I can chill for the rest of the day. I could chill for the rest of the week. This person said I did good today. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so I know it drives you crazy, but I'm the same way. The moment something good happens, I'm on to the next. But I realize that's what makes us who we are. And it's a competitive
definitely.
spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's not over till it's over, and we still got a long, hopefully a lot more way to go.
Exactly.
I'll still have to say,
And no,
yeah,
and I
man.
want to ask you this. We're gonna wrap it up in like 10 minutes. Just want to
Oh,
ask you this, like for the new artists out there, especially because we go up in the era of like showcases. Do you still do showcases? You live on the East Coast. It seems. Uh, do you do art showcases where you have like a, what do they call it? Again, I'm a little ignorant like when it comes to these phrases or these terms.
you mean like exhibitions, like galleries and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I started out in illustration, so like a lot of that was like editorials, album covers, things like that, like magazines, But yeah, I do want to eventually have a show, and I had a couple in the past, but like, yeah, I would like to make that transition into fine arts. There's a lot of like in between of illustration and fine arts, but yeah, in the end, yeah, I would like to find whatever venue can reach people the best. That's it. Right
Got
now during quarantine, you know, Instagram is the best way, or online.
with Instagram and online. I'm so curious about this. Is like, how do you guys like walk the line of like people, you what if somebody uses your image without your consent? How do you like
Oh yeah,
monetize that? Because this artwork is incredible, bro, you know it. And like, dude, even months before I
thank
knew
you.
we were going to do this podcast, I just knew we were going to do it yesterday. I had to like, I felt compelled to like, I'm like, damn, this shit is dope. Like, your artwork is
Thanks, man.
super dope. Yeah. So like, how do
Yeah,
you
it's crazy.
and just feel free without people taking advantage of it?
Well, I sell prints. I sell prints in my online store at danparkstudio.com. Uh, yeah, I sell prints there, but in terms of other people using it, like it's not like you can take a high res image anyways, and it's not like they can necessarily print it. But if they use it, I've always felt like just use it. Like I don't care. I don't care if people use it because, and even if they copy it, whatever, because all it's doing is giving an homage to me, and I'm still on to the next one anyways. So I'm not just like sitting back on my laurels, like saying I drew that or whatever. But in terms of like bigger scale, like mass production, of course, I gotta get paid. But
Yeah.
yeah, if somebody posts it or uses it here and there, if I find out about it and they're like making money off of it, I'll probably contact them. But there have been things in the past, dude. I can't believe there's one dude. I sold him a painting online, so he got the painting, and then he told me, "Hey, dude, I don't know what happened. And he asked me about the painting, like I want it so bad, or whatever. And I sold the painting to him, and then he said, "Yo, my friend got my phone, and then I can't pay for it. So like, he contacted his bank to cancel that. And so I disputed
Wow.
it, and I disputed it, and I showed it. I circled all our texts back and forth, and I lost that dispute. It said, "Sorry, we can't help you out any further." So he still has my painting. That dude, he got it for free.
Bro, I want to kill that dude. Like that makes
Yeah,
me
yeah,
furious. Because
yeah, dude.
this is my next part. Dude, it makes me so furious. You said your
Yeah,
website
that's
is
crazy.
danparkstudio, right?
Yeah.
.com?
Hmm.
Okay. So do you do like, because artists need to be compensated and people love to like donate to, especially painters and artists. Just like, do you do things like that? Do you have a link on your page where people can donate to you and
Uh,
fans of yours?
not,
They can
yeah,
donate?
not as of now, but if they want to reach out, like with my studio, artlabstudio.org,
Lab
like
Studio.
that's, yeah, we have a thing set up for our students and for anybody that wants to give a donation. Yeah, that's something that I should get up on. I don't know if Patreon's the best thing. I don't know what the best venue is, but yeah, donations would be great, man.
Yeah,
It's not
man.
easy making a living off this.
It's not, but there are people out there who appreciate your work and art, like great artists, so much that they will like compensate you and just for the fact that you're putting out such great work. And it's like it's a beautiful industry you're in because it's not necessarily consumer, like it's not direct marketing. It's just like people could pay you for what they love. That guy's shady though. That guy is a dirtbag. Yeah, like, I'm pissed
I
off.
like to catch him at my gym one day, dude.
Oh yeah,
But it's water under the
tie
bridge,
on
man.
him real quick.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Anyways, yeah, we'll wrap this up, and I hope we can do a part two. And
Oh yeah, for sure, man. This was
yeah,
fun, dude.
yeah, super dope. I want to say your artwork is amazing. Just plug those two websites real quick where they can get your artwork. And
Yeah, it's danparkstudio.com
mhm.
is where you can, look at current work and get some prints, maybe some more t-shirts in the future. And artlabstudio.org, O-R-G, for students if you guys want to learn something, take some private classes or whatever, online, or if you're in the neighborhood in Fort Lee, New Jersey, you can stop by once all this craziness is over, and probably in like a month or something.
Perfect, nice. And your Instagram is at Dan Park Studio for all you guys
Yep.
out. And yeah, we appreciate you being on the show. I have a lot more questions, but these questions are going to take another hour, so we'll do a
Yeah, dude.
part.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
man, it was so fun. It was good seeing you. Keep that music going, dude. I
I
love it.
will. I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm music out right now, but I'm gonna get back to it. You inspired me, bro. That's why I love doing this podcast to talk to people
That's
like,
great.
yeah,
Same here, man.
yes, sir.
All right, dude.
All
Thank
right,
you.
enjoy your day and stay safe during the quarantine. Give my best regards to your wife and enjoy your night, man.
Thanks, man. You too.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.